The last part of 8.3, comparing two samples, we're going to be looking at independent samples. So this is going to be two separate groups of observational units. There's going to be no relationship between or corresponding parts between one observation unit in one group and one observation in the other. It's going to be two completely separate groups. So an example we talked about earlier was a group from New York and a group of people from Pennsylvania. They two completely separate groups, and we're not going to be matching up or pairing any of the observational units in either of the groups. So the groups might not even be equal size. Okay, so we are only going to be covering the p-value method. We will not be covering, there is a critical value method. You can use the same critical value steps that we did before, but we're not going to be doing it for this topic. We're only going to be doing p-value method. So we'll be using the two sample t-tests on our graphing calculators, on the TI-83s, 84s. So two sample t-tests. Information you need is the same for the other p-values. We're still going to need a null and alternative hypothesis, alpha level, and p-value. So they're the three pieces I'm going to need to see, and then using those, you're going to come up with the conclusion. Same rules before. If p-value is less than or equal to alpha, we reject the null. If p-value is greater than alpha, we fail to reject the null. So again, very, very similar to what we have been doing. I'm going to do two examples because there is an example where we're going to have lists of data, and then there's going to be an example where we're given summary statistics. So I'm going to do an example of each so you can see how each of them go into your calculator. Self-teaching online course was being compared to the traditional in-class method of learning. At the end of the year, the final exam grades were compared. One class took the class online, the other had class with a teacher each day. The same material was taught in both courses over the same time period. Test to see if there was a difference between the two methods of teaching. Be 99% confident. So we're assuming the distributions are normal. We're assuming randomness. So all of our conditions are on be satisfied. Our null and alternative, I have the mu of online equal to the mu traditional. And it's not asking if one's greater than the other, so I just have mu online is not equal to mu traditional for the alternative. Okay, so since there's no real direction of online is getting a better grade, traditional is getting a better grade, just not equal to. We are being 99% confident, so that means that our alpha level is 0.01. And now we're going to go to our calculator and see how to get our p-value. Okay, so I have my two lists plugged in, and even before we went to lists, I should have pointed this out when we saw both. You can see that the lists are not equal to each other. Okay, meaning that one is at 15 or 14, the other one has, here I'm at 18 individuals. So even if we did the L1 minus L2, we would get an error trying to subtract these two lists because the lists do not match up. So we don't need to do that because there's no relationship between the two lists. We're not trying to compare the difference. We're just going to be comparing the averages of the two lists. So I have mine in L1 and L2. And I'm on second quit. We do not need to do our subtraction. We're just going to go right to the test. And I'm going to go to two sample t-tests. Again, be careful. Two sample z-test, two sample t-test, very similar to each other. Make sure you're in the t-test. Data is going to be highlighted. When you're given the two lists, we're going to highlight data. I have L1 and L2, so they're the correct list. If you have it in different lists, you're going to need to plug them in. Tell it what list you have your list plugged into. Frequency, I'm going to leave at 1 or leave them blank. We had not equal to, so that is going to be highlighted. For the pooled, for this course, I'm always going to say our pooled sample is going to be no. Okay, this is going to be when you look at if the standard deviation, the variances are close enough together or not. For this course, we are always going to put no. Go down to calculate, and here's all of our statistics. Okay, so it comes and gives you the average of both, standard deviation of both. You scroll down, gives you your sample size. We care mostly about our test stat and our p-value. Our p-value here is 0.97, and that would round to 7, so 0.977. So that's what I use for our p-value method. And now we can compare our alpha and our p-value. Our p-value, 0.977, is much higher than our alpha level this time. So we are going to fail to reject the null, If I had to write out a conclusion, we would fail to reject a null, so we side with the null. Average grades are about the same for online and traditional instruction. Okay, so there really is no evidence to say that one is higher or lower than the other. There's no evidence to say that they are different. Okay, so that method was looking at two lists of data that were given to you, and two-sample t-test makes it very easy to find the p-value. Okay, our next example, is there a difference in IQ compared to what county of Pennsylvania you live in? A sample of 84 individuals from Lancaster County was taken, and they had a mean of 118. Another sample of 103 was taken from Delaware County with a mean of 123. It is found that the sample standard deviation for the IQ of Lancaster County is 25 and for Delaware County is 12. Be 95% confident. Okay, so first off, let's start off how we always do, null and alternative. Okay, and they just want to see if there's a difference between the IQs, so I'm looking at Lancaster County equal to Delco County, Delaware County, and then the average of Lancaster County not equal to the average of Delaware County. So we're comparing the averages of their IQ. We're being 95% confident, so our alpha level is 0.05. Now before I go and show you how to plug this in, it's very important you take the information and organize it. You're going to have we have two samples here, Delaware County and Lancaster County. It's very important that we label and make sure we're organized what information is going with which sample. So I just want to go to the pen here. A sample of 84 individuals from Lancaster County. So that is our first N for our sample of Lancaster County. The average here is 118, so I'll put a red X bar there. And the standard deviation for Lancaster County is 25. So this is just me organizing the N, the X bar, and the S. For the other sample, I'm going to change this to blue. It says a sample of 103 for Delaware County. So there's my N. A mean of 123, making X bar under there, just so I know which one is the X bar. And 12 is our standard deviation. Okay. So there's just a way of quickly organizing your average, standard deviation, and your N. All that's going to be needed. So from there, let's go to our calculator and see how to get our p-value. Okay, so this time we're going to go right to stat. There's no list to plug in, so we're going to go right to stat, to test, and go down to our t-test. Okay, and this time we're going to highlight stats. Now, the information they ask you for stats, okay, you can see here, X bar 1, standard deviation 1, N1, all that's your first sample. So if I'm looking at this for Lancaster County, it said there was an average of 118 for Lancaster. The standard deviation was 25. And our N was 84 individuals. So our sample sizes are plenty big, 84 and it was 103, so we're good there. Delaware County now. We had a sample of 123. We had a standard deviation of 12. And our sample size was 103. Okay, again, we're at not equal to. Let me just double check everything here. We had 118 average, 84 individual. Standard deviation was 25 for Lancaster County. 123 mean for Delaware County. 12 for the standard deviation for Delaware County, and 103. So all that works out. I'm going to keep my pooled at no. I'm going to go down to calculate, hit enter, and here we have 0.095. It's all the same information. It's really just giving us back what we just plugged in since we already had the summary stat. 0.095 is our p-value. So with that p-value of 0.095, again, comparing alpha and our p-value, alpha again is bigger than our p-value is bigger than our alpha. So we are going to fail to reject. And we fail to reject the null, so we side with the null. The average IQ is about the same for people in Lancaster County and Delaware County. Again, there is no evidence to show that there's a difference between the two. Okay, so those two examples just show how to use the calculator, the two-sample t-test function. So you should be able to run a t-test for two independent samples.